Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Today we are pleased, as always, to have Pamela Starr with us. We always love having her here. I'm Diane McKeever. I am the education chair for the Minnesota chapter of SCORE. And we're going to talk about making your website work for you in 2023. But before we do, we have to do a little bit of business. I want to tell you about SCORE. If you don't know about SCORE, you should know about it. As small business owners, SCORE is here to help you. We are a resource partner of the SBA, and we help people with business mentoring, and we do this either in person or online, and it's entirely free. Our chapter, the Minnesota chapter, has over 90 members who are there to help you. We serve Manatee and Sarasota counties, but if you've been listening, I have clients all over the country, so it really doesn't matter where you are. Our chapter was recently recognized as a chapter of the year. So in what part of this development can we help you? And really the whole gamut from, I have an idea, I woke up this morning, I have an idea, and what do you think about it? We will kick that around with you and crunch the numbers and see whether or not that's a viable idea. Or you've opened a business and now you need some help with it. We can help you with that to grow your business, or lastly, selling or closing, or the alternative to that, buying a business. We can help so that you don't overpay or that you don't lose money and leave it on the table. So we can help you in all aspects. We're encouraging you to visit our website, which is score.org/Minnesota. This is a new address for us. So if you have an old one bookmarked, bookmark this one. There you can click on request a mentor and put in your business information. It's a very simple form that you fill in, and you will be assigned a mentor. You can look for other workshops. We have workshops just about every week on Wednesday at noon. You can go to our website and search for keywords. There's all kinds of templates and recorded webinars that can help you. Lastly, I want to thank our sponsors and community partners. You'll notice that a lot of our sponsors are banks. And it is true that if you come into a bank with a SCORE volunteer on your arm, they're going to listen to you a lot more than if you come walking in with a pile of papers. They'll know that somebody has talked to you about whether or not you have a viable idea and can make money. So please consider getting a SCORE volunteer. So without further ado, I am going to turn this over to Pamela, and take it away, Pamela.
All right. Well, thank you, Diane, for that. My name is Pamela Starr, and we're here today to talk about make your website work for you in 2023. Now, if you have attended any of my other webinars that I have done for SCORE Minnesota, you know I am a professional trainer for Grow with Google. That's the division of Google that provides all kinds of free education to people just like you. This year, Google is kind of reconfiguring the way that we do the educational workshops, and they don't quite have their systems in place to do presentations quite yet. So today, I'm not representing Grow with Google. I'm actually kind of representing myself. I do have my own business, like most of you do. You can certainly visit me on my website, which is PamelaStarRonline.com. And the slide that we have on the screen in front of you shows my website's homepage. Now, I have been a huge fan of SCORE since 2010. That is when I first started working for a different company called Constant Contact, and I started doing educational workshops about Constant Contact on behalf of SCORE way back then. So I've had a long relationship with SCORE. I'm a huge fan of them. I personally have worked with a SCORE mentor myself, which has been so incredibly helpful for me. But we're here today, of course, to talk about you and how you can make your website work for you in 2023. One of the things that's important to understand is when people are shopping, they are going online looking for basic information. Even if they just want something that we would consider to be a basic commodity, like a ballpoint pen, or if they're looking for something a little bit more specialized. Thanks to all of you that put information into the chat about what your business is. We've got all kinds of different businesses online with us today. We've got swim coaches, a swim coach. We've got art galleries. We've got a couple of website developers. We've got Cartier limousine services. Those are all different types of businesses that can help people in all kinds of different ways. It's important to understand, even if you have the type of business where you think you get the majority of your business from referrals, it's important to understand that 70% of people in a recent study said that they went online even when they were looking for basic shopping experiences. People absolutely are going online looking for a business like yours. Or even if they were referred to you by their friends or their neighbor or family member, they may be going online to check you out first before they decide to pick up the phone and call you. That's why it's critical that you have a website that gives a strong impression about your business. Here's an example of what we call good website design. Now, website design goes through trends, just like hairstyle design or automotive design goes through trends. It's important to be sure that your website has the design that is prevalent today in 2023. And what I'm showing on the screen is a good example of that. You want to aim for having a white background with clear pictures, bold headlines, lots of white space. Now, website design kind of falls into two different categories. There is the design, meaning how does your website look? And then there's also kind of the back end of the design, meaning how is your website built? If your website was created maybe 7 or 8 years ago, unfortunately, there's a good chance that your website looks kind of outdated. Maybe it's a little bit old-fashioned looking. Maybe it's a little bit frumpy looking. Keep in mind, your website is the front door to your business. If your website looks out of touch or maybe kind of homegrown or kind of piecemealed, put together, unfortunately, that makes your business look out of touch or kind of not really, put together very nicely. The other thing that's important to understand about the website design is the back end of your website also needs to be kept current, meaning all of the mathematical formulas that go into how your website performs do need to be kept up to date. Think of a website the same way that we think of as cell phones. Now, if you have a cell phone that you bought at Christmas, just last month, chances are good the cell phone is using top of the line technology, and it's going to be faster, it's going to be smoother, and it's going to work better than a cell phone that perhaps is 5 or 6 years old. Sure, the 5 or 6-year-old cell phone, you can absolutely make telephone calls, and you can use lots of your favorite apps on that older phone, but it's not going to perform as quickly and as efficiently as a brand new cell phone. It's the exact same thing with your website. A website that was built 5 or 6 years ago was probably built on technology that was top of the line 5 or 6 years ago. It is now not going to be performing as well as a website that was built, say, in 2022. Now, don't worry. I am not here today to tell you you need to stop everything and rebuild your website. That is not the point of today's presentation. The point of today's presentation is to help you understand how can you think about your website in a way to be more effective for you as you go into 2023. These are some things that I'm going to be talking about today. Your website needs to be goal-oriented, needs to be search-friendly, needs to be convenient for you and your customers, needs to be well-organized, and it needs to be trustworthy. So let's get into these different things one by one. I'm going to start off talking about a great website is goal-oriented. Now, I've been speaking for Google doing webinars since we all shut down for COVID back in March of 2020. But before that, Google flew me all around the United States to do in-person presentations. And when I would do my in-person presentations, I would ask people to raise their hands and tell me what was the goal of their website. And people oftentimes would say things to me like to build brand awareness or to educate everybody about how I can help them. Now, those goals are nice, but for a small business like the majority of you all have, I recommend you think of your website as a salesperson. If you were to go out and hire a salesperson to help you grow your business, that person would have goals. You would want them to make a certain number of sales. You would want them maybe to bring in a certain number of consultations or whatever you needed to grow your business. Think about your website the same way, and we're going to get into that. Now, depending on what type of business you have, your website might have different types of goals. Depending on your business, you may want a website that is designed to help you connect with visitors. Now, just because people land on your website and they read everything about it, and Google Analytics tracks it as, yes, somebody visited your website, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to help you grow your business if you're not collecting information about those people. And that is one of the things that I talk about in a totally different world. But you do want to be sure on your website you have some type of form or pop-up that allows people to give you their email address. And so if the goal of your website is to grow your business, be sure you're using some type of email marketing tool such as Constant Contact or MailChimp or Infusionsoft or something like that to collect email addresses of the people that visit your website. So that way you can market to them in the future. Other people may say that the goal of their website is to generate actual viable leads. Maybe they want people to click here to schedule an appointment to talk to you. Depending what type of business you have, maybe the goal of your website is to truly generate sales. If you're selling a commodity like this ballpoint pen, or if you're selling something that's unique, like a blouse or t-shirts, you can have a shopping site on your website, and the whole goal of your website is to make your digital cash register ring. Now, depending on what type of business you have, you may need to re-engage your past customers. Folks, you are going to be more likely to grow your business if you are trying to keep in touch with your past customers to get their repeat and referral business. Building a website that's designed to do that, that's a great goal. Depending on what type of business you have and what's going on in your industry, you may need to refocus your website to help you attract good quality employees. Or you may have a website that's designed to provide support to the customers that you already have. For today's presentation, I'm going to be kind of talking about websites with a couple of primary goals, either to generate sales or to generate leads. And that's simply because, based on my experience talking to small businesses for as many years as I have, those typically are the two things that people find most important. Now, when it comes to having a goal for your website, you do need to be sure that you are clear in your own head. How are you going to measure the success of your website? Sometimes people will say things to me like, oh, my website, I have a website, it doesn't do anything for me, so I really don't pay that much attention to it. Or people will say something to me quite proudly, like, oh, my website is doing great. Every month I get 10,000 hits on my website. It's like, well, okay, but is it truly helping your business grow? Folks, you need to be sure on your website you have features built in that you can measure. You are not marketing if you are not measuring. On your website, there are a slew of different things you can measure. Obviously, if the goal of your website is to get people to buy your products, you can track the number of people that bought your product. You also can track the number of people that signed up for your email list. Depending on how you set up your website, you can track how many people called your business directly from your website compared to calling your business from other advertising that you might have. You also can track engagement, meaning, do people come back to your website on a regular basis? Those are all things that you can track as long as you create a website that has different features built in that give you the opportunity to track these different elements. And I'm going to be talking about those throughout today's presentation. Also, when it comes to your website, it is important that you start thinking from your customer's perspective. One of the biggest mistakes I see small businesses make with their website is it's all about me. This is how great I am. This is how long we've been in town. These are the awards that we've won. All of that stuff is fantastic, but keep in mind, customers are more interested in themselves. They want to know, how are you going to make them great? That's the important secret sauce to creating a good website. Really, when it comes to any type of marketing, it's not just about how great you are, it's about how great you can help people become. So going back to our swim coach, who is in the webinar chats, and I'm not, just so you all know, I'm not keeping a close eye on chat. If you have a question for me during the webinar, please type your question into Zoom's Q&A, just because it's a little bit easier for me to keep my eye on the Q&A. But with the swim coach that is in today's webinar, I don't know, does that swim coach help competitive swimmers? Or does that swim coach help people who probably haven't ever learned how to swim? Maybe they want to learn how to swim. But in either case, working with a swim coach can make somebody a greater swimmer. So that's kind of what I mean about helping people understand you can make them great. Start really thinking about who your ideal customer is. How do they act? What's important to them? How do they think? What do they want from you right now? Now, if maybe you're just starting your business and you're not quite sure who your customers are going to be, that's a great conversation for you to have with a SCORE mentor. SCORE mentors, they are great about working closely with you to help you figure out who is your ideal customer and help you figure out how can you market to those. All right, I see our swim coach just said that our swim coach teaches and coaches both groups, both people that are competitive swimmers as well as people that are just starting to learn how to swim. And so those are two very different audiences. And so on your website, if you do have multiple audiences, just be sure you're covering both areas well, so that way you don't make somebody feel kind of left out. So kind of keep that in mind. All right, I see Jennifer just asked a question. Do I recommend any website company over any other? I've been leaning towards using Wix. Do I recommend it, or are there any other ones that are any better? Jennifer, and for everybody, I don't recommend any specific website companies. I do actually have a blog post on my website where I talk about different website companies, including Wix. What I do recommend is stick with one of the well-known brand name national website development tools that are designed for small businesses. And those are tools like Wix, Weebly, Shopify, Squarespace, those types of tools. Those tools are good quality tools, and they keep in touch with all of Google's algorithms to help you have the best opportunity with your website. Other people build websites on WordPress, which is also a fantastic tool. What I suggest you try to stay away from is maybe you, or you've got a friend or family member who kind of likes to tinker around and is happy to build a website for you. If they're not a professional website developer, I would say you might kind of want to stay away from that, simply because you want to either use a professional website developer, or if you're building your own website, use one of the national brand name tools, because that's how you're going to get the best results. All right, I see we've got another question here, and I'm going to get into that in just a couple of minutes. The next thing that I want to talk about is a free tool that Google has to offer to everybody called Google Trends. Now, I mentioned before that website design goes through trends. The other thing that's important to understand is the things that people search for also go through trends. When I was speaking to people in person, people would sometimes say to me something like, "Hey, Pamela, 5 years ago, I was on the first page of Google. Today, I'm on page 4 of Google. I haven't changed anything on my website. How come Google doesn't like me anymore? Well, the reason why that might happen is if you haven't changed anything on your website backend is old-fashioned and out of date now. But also, people are searching for different things now than we were searching for 5 years ago. Google Trends is one of the simpler tools that Google has to offer, and I love this tool. You can get to know this at g.co/trends. When you go there, simply type in different words or phrases that you think your ideal future customer is using when they're searching for information on Google. Google will tell you relative to each other which words or phrases are more or less frequently searched for on Google. And that should be the words and phrases you want to have on your website. So in the example that I have on my slides right now, we went to Google Trends and we typed in two very similar words, jam and jelly. Now, in my mind, they're kind of the same thing. It's the sweet, sugary stuff that I put on my toast in the morning because I like the way that it tastes. But take a look at the results here. According to Google Trends, more people search for the word jelly. That's what the red line is. And less people search for the word jam. That's the blue line that is lower than the red line. Now, if you are the type of company that makes homemade jams and jellies and preserves, maybe you call your product preserves, or you call your products gourmet fruit spreads. You still want to use the word jelly on your website because that's what people are looking for. So definitely do keep that in mind. Google Trends it's a free tool. Can't remember if I mentioned that or not. Now, the next tool I'm going to talk about is Google Analytics. This is something that many of you have probably heard about. Now, Google Trends is a very simple tool. You can just go straight there and start playing around with it. I sometimes get to be kind of like a data nerd, and I get really into Google Trends sometimes because it's fun to see what it is people are searching for. Google Analytics is a much more robust tool. Now, just between you and me, whenever I refer to a Google tool as robust, that means that sometimes it might feel a little bit complicated. But I do want to be sure that you understand what Google Analytics is and how it can help you. Google Analytics is another 100% free tool that Google has for you. There is no upgraded version of it. You can sign up for Google Analytics at g.co/analytics. Google Analytics will let you know how do groups of people interact with your website. It will help you understand what search terms result in people visiting your website. It can give you some very basic demographic information about people in general on your website. Having said that, Google, like most of the big tech companies, is starting to kind of step away a little bit from giving businesses demographic information about their website visitors. Right now, if you have ever watched the television news, you know that there's a huge focus on personal privacy right now. So Google Analytics is not offering the detailed demographic information now that it did a couple of years ago, which is why it is important that you do be sure that you do have someplace on your website where people can click here to sign up for your email list. That's how you can get to know people a little bit better. But Google Analytics can tell you what content on your website are more people visiting. Where are they spending time on your website? Where are they abandoning your website? As you get more detailed with trying to really understand how your website can help your business grow, Google Analytics can be really pivotal for you. It can also help you understand what channels drive the most conversions. Now, what the heck does that mean? In Google's world, a channel simply means where was somebody online before they visited your website. So a channel could be maybe somebody was on a different website that linked to you, and they went to your website. A channel could be social media. A channel could be organic. And that's what everyone's always all entranced with. That is what we would kind of commonly call the free search listings, the organic search listings that everybody wants to know, how can I show up higher in the organic search listings on Google? Google Analytics will let you know, do the people that visit your website from the organic search listings, do they take action on your website, or do they visit your website and abandon it? Compared to perhaps people that visit your website from your social media accounts, maybe those people spend more time on your website. You wouldn't know that if you weren't looking at Google Analytics. Google Analytics, as I said before, it's a free tool. You can sign up for it at g.co/analytics. Last year, which sounds so funny to say last year, which was just really last month, I have done introduction to Google Analytics presentations for SCORE Minnesota. So look and see if you can find the recording of that presentation on their website. When you set up your first Google Analytics account, Google will ask you to set up a property. Just so you know, that just means your website. In Google Analytics, you can track how people engage with your website. You can also track how people engage with your business app if you have one. So if you have a website and an app, you simply have two properties. So that's what a property means. It's basically just your website. Then it will give you some instructions on how you can add a special code to your website to link it to Google Analytics. And depending on what tool your website was built in, it's going to work a little bit differently for each of those different types of tools. Now, I will let you know, if you've had Google Analytics for a couple of years, you may have heard that Google is migrating to an updated version of Google Analytics. That is called Google Analytics 4 or GA4. If you just set up Google Analytics today, or some point in the future, or if you set it up sometime perhaps in the last 6 months, you probably already have Google Analytics 4. This is the version that Google is going to be working much more carefully with. They have announced that in July of 2023, they're going to stop supporting the old version of Google, which is called Google Analytics Universal or Universal Analytics. So if you do have an older analytics account, if you have not updated it to Google Analytics 4 yet, you definitely need to do that. All right, so enough about Google Analytics. I want to talk now about more things that you can do right away to help your website help your business. Your website does need to be search friendly. Okay, I see now there's a couple more questions in the Q&A. Don't worry, I will get to those. It's important to understand that people need to be able to find your website when they go online. As I mentioned before, over the course of time, people search for different things. Here's something really interesting. There has been a 100% year-over-year growth of people searching for the phrase, now near me. People want to know, is there an accountant that's open now near me? Where can I find somebody that has this filter that I need for my air conditioner that I can go visit now near me? So that's a great example of why you do want to be sure you keep your website up to date. When people go to Google, it's important to understand they go to Google typically for one of two reasons. Either they have a question they need an answer to, or they have a problem they need a solution to. Your job is to build a website that has answers to their questions and solutions to their problems. So that person, your ideal future customer, has a problem or a question. They go to Google and they type in their problem or their question. Now, depending on hundreds of different factors, Google will show them a variety of resources. Google may show them text ads or shopping ads. They may show them different websites in those organic search results, or they may show the Google Business Profile. For today's conversation, of course, we're talking about hopefully people finding you in those organic search results. Now, I mentioned just a moment ago, there are hundreds of different factors that determine what websites are Google, I guess, What websites does Google show to people that are searching for information? Unfortunately, Google does not make a good, clear list of what all of those factors are. But these are some of the things that Google does say are really critical to showing up in Google's organic search rankings right now. First of all, your website needs to have a fast load time. We live in the world where we all have the attention span of a gnat. If your website takes forever to load, maybe 4 excruciating seconds, people aren't going to have the patience to wait for your website to load, especially if they are doing that search on their smartphone. Google knows what your load time is of your website. If your website takes too long to load, Google may show somebody else's website higher simply because it has a faster load time. Your website also does need to have useful content. Remember, your customer, your future customer, is going to Google and they're typing in their question or their problem. You need to have answers to their questions or solutions to their problems on your website. Type in the types of things that people are looking for. If you're not sure what people might be looking for, ask people. Say, if you were looking for somebody to rebuild your website, what would be important to you? Or you can use Google Trends to find out what words and phrases people are using on your website. Be sure you've got good content. Here's a little tip for you. How to is one of the most commonly searched for phrases on YouTube, on Google. So what might you want to have on your website? Think about how to. Think of those how-tos that customers might be looking for and have a how to, fill in the blank with whatever that is, have a little article about that on your website, because that may give your website the boost to be offered to your ideal future customer. Google also likes to have websites that have lots of links on them. You can link to different pages on your website, or you can have a link to have somebody sign up for your email list, or a link for somebody to schedule your consultation. Google's mathematical formulas can kind of understand links. And so that can also be one of the factors that goes into how high or how low is your website likely to be offered to your ideal future customer. You do want to be sure that you have good page titles and descriptions. Now, the pages on your website give you a great opportunity to put those keywords in the titles of those pages. Now, on most websites, certainly including mine, we tend to have kind of the basic normal pages, the home page, about us, contact us. But take a look at the other pages on your website and see if perhaps you can rename some of those pages using those keywords that Google Trends told you people are searching for. Because if you have a page on your website where the title of your page is the exact information somebody is searching for, there's a better likelihood that Google will offer that person your page simply because of what you had named the title of that page. Google also says your website needs to have good information architecture. So what the heck does that mean? It simply means your website needs to be well organized. Now, that's going to mean something different for every business and for every website out there. But just kind of try and think of the information on your website. Don't have a ton of information on just a couple of pages. See if you can figure out what is the basic category of information somebody might search for. In the example that I gave a minute ago about our swim coach, and we learned that our swim coach works with both competitive swimmers and people that are just learning how to swim. Those are two totally different audiences. So it might make sense. And again, I don't know that individual and I have not seen their website, but it might make sense to have one page of information that is about coaching for competitive swimmers and another page of information that's about coaching perhaps for babies. Maybe there's also different types of coaching, perhaps adults who have a fear of the water. So again, I don't know anything about that business, but in my head, those are different topics and maybe they should be on different pages of the website. Your website also does need to work well on all browsers and all devices. Meaning, of course, it needs to work well on Google Chrome, but it also needs to work well on Safari and Firefox. It needs to work well on people's Chrome laptop computers. It needs to work well on people's Apple devices. It needs to work well on people's Samsung devices. It needs to work well on all of those devices. Now, Google has another free tool, which is called Search Console. That is something that you can attach to your website and kind of get some more information about this. Search Console, as I said, is another free tool. Google Analytics lets you understand how groups of actual people interact with your website. Search Console gives you information about how Google's mathematical formulas interact with your website. You can sign up for Search Console at g.co/Search Console. Again, this is a little bit more advanced tool. If you're just getting started with your website or just starting to learn about Google, you may not be quite ready for either Analytics or Search Console. But if you're a little further on down in the journey, you definitely do want to get to know Search Console. It can let you know if you've got broken links on your website, for example. And a broken link is something I know you all have experienced. When you went to somebody else's website, you clicked on a link and you got that white screen that said 404 error. That's a broken link. That's frustrating. Folks, my guess is every SCORE mentor out there would say it is a bad idea to frustrate your future customers. Search Console will let you know if you've got broken links on your website, as well as a number of other things. Now, we're not going to talk more about Search Console here because, again, that's a little bit more advanced technology. I want to talk about more things you can do more easily to help your website grow. Now, a good website does need to be convenient. This is something which is really critical to understand. What you want to be sure of is your website works well on people's devices. And a device is going to be their desktop or laptop computer, perhaps their tablet, perhaps a smart TV, perhaps their smartphone. Today, more than 50% of Google searches are being done on people's mobile devices. Your website better work well on people's smartphones and on their tablets. What that means is next time you are thinking about updating your website, think of it from the mobile perspective first. Now, I know if you built your own website or if you hired somebody to build it for you, you probably preview your website on your desktop or laptop computer that has a monitor that's kind of in, one dimension, a horizontal rectangle. But you need to be sure that it looks good on people's smartphones when they hold them vertically. And it needs to look good on people's tablets that have different dimensions as well. That's something that you do want to be sure of. And this also gets back to be sure that you've got lots of white space on your website. Be sure it's easy for people to tap on the links on your website. Don't ask for too much information in forms. It's funny how clumsy we all get when we're looking at a website on our itty-bitty smartphone. We're trying to type in our name, address, telephone number, and all of that stuff. So be mindful of that. You want to be sure that it works well on people's website, so it's convenient for them to use it. Other things that come under the convenience category is make it easy for people to give you their money. You want to be sure that if you have anything that people need to go through a checkout process on your website, make it super simple for them. Let them use Google Pay, let them use PayPal or Apple Pay. Those are called digital wallets. Now, I know because I have been through this with my website. Yes, you do have to pay a little bit more to have somebody use Google Pay or PayPal than if they type in their credit card number directly. Just be sure that you make it super easy for people to give you their money. You are much better off collecting 95% of the sale if you're using one of these digital wallets than collecting 0% of the sale because you're making it too hard for somebody to give you their money. So be sure that your website is convenient if you want people to pay you on your website. If you have the type of website where you have products or services that you offer to people, be sure that you're letting them know, similar products or recommended products. This kind of gets back to the old McDonald's thing that we all kind of giggle about. Do you want fries with that? It's a great strategy for you because it can help you upsell people. If they bought this particular pen, perhaps they might also want some paper that goes with the particular pen. So do be sure that if you have upsell opportunities, you have that mechanism built into your website. Other things that are convenient that customers are really interested in right now are things like curbside pickup, fast and flexible shipping, virtual consultations. These are all things that consumers learned to love during the COVID shutdown. They are not going away. If you offer any or all of those, be sure that you have that information front and center on your website. So that way people that might want to, maybe they're looking for a new accountant. It's January. This is the time of year where many of us are starting to think about our taxes. If there's a new accountant that offers virtual consultations, if that's what you do, put that on your website because that might be just enough information to convince people to give you a try. So put these convenient factors on your websites because people absolutely want them. The next thing about your website is it does need to be well organized. And I touched on this a moment ago, so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. This gets back to that information architecture that I talked about. Now, another great example that I like to use when I talk about information architecture is, let's say somebody was a dog trainer and they offered group dog training classes at the park. They offered in-home dog training classes that were private with just you and your family and your dog. They also said, you know what? I will take your dog, bring it back to my house, train the dog for a month, deliver him back to you perfectly trained, or maybe they just have some training videos. Those are 4 different types of dog training services that they might offer. And they're going to be interesting to 4 different types of people. And so that's why that is another good example of thinking about your website. When it comes to the different pages, try to think of 1 thought per page on your website. Group dog training classes is 1 thought. Pay me a bunch of money and I will train your dog for you and then turn around and deliver him back to you perfectly trained. That's a completely different thought. Those different thoughts should be on different pages. Other things when it comes to organizing your website is you do want to be sure you've got a good menu, that you have the list of the different pages on your website. Every page, virtually every page on your website needs to have a clear call to action. That call to action is something like, buy now, call us today, click here to schedule an appointment, click here to download. It's kind of funny when it comes to sales and marketing. If you tell somebody to do something, they are a heck of a lot more likely to do it than if you don't tell them. So almost every page needs to have a call to action. I recommend you have that call to action towards the top of the page. And that's because people don't like to scroll down to the bottom. So if you want people to click here to book a free consultation with you, or if you want them to click here to book a paid consultation with you, put that call to action at the top of your pages. Be sure, again, that your website is easy for people to navigate. Then the last thing I'm going to talk about before I get into the questions, and I know Diane's got some final comments to make as well, is a great website does need to be trustworthy. And that gets back to kind of those digital wallets that I just talked about here just a moment ago. People sometimes might feel a little bit uncomfortable typing in their credit card number and their secret code into a website of a local business that maybe they don't really know how long this business has been around. Are they really that reputable? People are much more likely to trust those digital wallets because they know that there's recourse if there's a problem with a product or service that they offered. The other thing that's really important to understand is your website does need to be built on a secure platform. Now, this is something where there was a lot of buzz about 4 years ago. Google made an announcement that it was going to put priority on websites that are built on secure platforms and lower priority for websites that are not built on a secure platform. How do you know if your website is built on a secure platform? If you open an incognito window or a private window on your computer, go to your own website URL. If there's a little padlock next to it, or if the full address is HTTPS, that stands for secure, that means it's built on a secure platform. Chances are good if your website was built in the last couple of years using one of those name brand reputable companies that I mentioned before, Wix, Weebly, Squarespace, Shopify, GoDaddy has some, there's a whole bunch of them out there. Chances are good it is built on a secure platform. Where I see websites that are not built on secure platforms typically are websites that somebody built maybe 5 or 6 years ago, or kind of ironically, a lot of government agencies' websites are not built on secure platforms simply because they've been around for a long time. If I look at like a local community's, a local city website, sometimes they're not built on secure platforms either. So hopefully they would get that up to speed as well. Other things that help build with giving people security and confidence in your website is having reviews. Now, I'm not going to talk about the Google business listing here. I see Kimberly asked a question about that already. Looks like there was another question about how can you get about the business profiles. This is not a webinar to talk about business profiles, so I'm not going to get into that at all, other than people absolutely can write reviews about you on your business profile. Take screenshots of those, have those on your website, or copy the information somebody put on your business profile or on your Facebook account or in other website tools like Yelp, where people can perhaps write reviews about you. Put that information on your website. People trust reviews, even from total complete random strangers. People trust reviews more than they trust advertising. Let people know you've got 29 5-star reviews. That will go a long way with people having confidence in you. Show those ratings if you've got them. Also, do be sure that there's a way that people can contact you on your website. Maybe you don't want people calling you. That's perfectly fine. But be sure that you've got a contact us form on there, simply so that way people can say, do you know what? Not too sure about this business. I've got a quick little question. Let me, fill out this contact us form, and then do be sure that you get back to them. Now, I want to go over just a couple of more things that can kind of help you learn a little bit more about your website. First of all, Google has a great tool, which is called Google Primer. This is a free tool that's got a whole bunch of quick and easy lessons. This is an app that you can download to your smartphone, wherever it is that you get any of your apps for your phone, whether it's an Apple device or an Android device. It's simply called Google Primer. You can go to the place on the website, which is on my slide, which is g.co/primer. It'll just tell you to go to the App Store. But what's nice about Primer is there's a search bar. And whatever thing you have a question about, you can type in your question into that search bar, and Primer will show you a whole list of quick and easy lessons about that topic related to business. They're anywhere from 3 to 6 minutes long. Some of these lessons were actually created in conjunction with SCORE. So that's good to know. The other thing I want to let you know about Google is the Grow with Google team has got a really great website. You can find that at google.com/grow. There's all kinds of information out there for different audiences, including small businesses just like you. So if you want to get more in-depth training about Google Analytics or Google Ads, you can navigate to more in-depth free training through the Grow with Google website. Now, whenever I talk to people about their website, people frequently ask me the same questions over and over again, which are, hey, Pamela, do you know where I can get copyright-free photos I can put on my website? Or, hey, Pamela, I'm thinking about making some videos. Is there any place I can get stock video photography? Or, hey, Pamela, do you know any resources for free video editing tools? And the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I do know all of that stuff. So what I have done is I've put together a list of all kinds of free resources that can really help small businesses with their website and other things they're doing online, such as their social media. These have nothing to do with Google. These are just a list of resources I have gathered over the years. If you are interested in getting an email from me with that list of resources, I just put a link in the chat in Zoom. You can click on the link in the chat in Zoom and you can request to get that email, or you can scan the QR code that is on the screen, or you can go to my website, which again is PamelaStarOnline.com. If you just want to go to my website, there is a blue button there that says free resources. If you click on that, I can be sure that I can send those free resources to you as well. All right, so that takes me to the end of the Google presentation. What I want to do now is go through the Q&A, and I will answer as many questions as I can here during the webinar. I'll flip back. Do you want me to flip back to this slide? I'll flip back to one of the earlier slides if that's what the question is all about. And I know Diane has some comments that she's going to make at the end too, so I will be sure to save some time for her. All right, James asked a question. Does having quizzes on the website have any positive effect if it requires an email to get results? James, that is actually a very good strategy. And for everybody, having a quiz on your website or other kind of, I don't want to say gimmicks, but other little gadgets like a poll or something like that, it can be really beneficial for a couple of reasons. First of all, what it can do is it tells somebody that when somebody visits your website, they're going to spend more time on your website filling out that quiz. The longer people spend on your website, the better that is for your website's organic search results. Also, if you have a quiz on your website and the only way people can get the results is they give you their email address, what do you have now? You've got their email address, which means you can now communicate to them through your email marketing tool, which is a great resource for you. So having those quizzes on your website, those can definitely help your business grow. All right, somebody asked a question here about how to get an event approved on Google. I'm not going to get into that simply because it's kind of off topic here. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that question. Let's see. All right, Catherine says, can the links be to another page on your website or Facebook, or do they have to be a link to other outside links? You can absolutely have a link from this page of your website to that page of your website. You also can have a link which is called an anchor. Sometimes people will have just one really long page on their website. And there's certain reasons why that might make sense. Maybe you're selling something that's kind of takes a longer sales process. An anchor is where you have something at the top of your page that people can click on that will take them to the bottom of the page. So you don't need to have links to outside places on your website to still kind of help with your organic search results. Catherine says, I have many pages with different titles and information. How many pages is too many? I don't know if there can be too many pages on your website. There definitely are some website developers who have the viewpoint that you should have as many pages as possible on your website. I've never heard of anybody say too many pages is too many, unless you've put your information on so many different pages that you don't really have meaty information on those pages. Do be sure that on every page, you've got good quality information. You don't want to sacrifice quality for having lots of pages on your website. All right, Paula asked a question. This is actually one of my favorite types of questions. Paula says, should pricing be on your website if you are training or coaching services? And then she says, is Weebly a good protected site? I'll take these kind of in two things. And Diane, you may want to kind of address the pricing on the website question. I have a viewpoint on it, and so I would love to hear your viewpoint, Diane. But is Weebly a good protected site? Weebly is definitely one of those well-known national brand sites. Wix, Weebly, Shopify, Squarespace, they're all good quality websites. Diane, do you want to chime in on the idea of having pricing on your website if you're training your coaching services?
I'm always encouraging people to put pricing on, or at least a range. There's nothing more disturbing. I just heard recently that somebody charges $10,000 for a 1 hour consultation. I want to know that in advance before I get involved in a conversation that's totally outside my comfort zone. What do you think, Pamela?
I 100% agree with you on that, Diane. I know sometimes people are kind of hesitant to put their pricing up there because, what if people think I'm too expensive? Folks, you need to charge for your services. And if somebody can't afford your services, sadly, they're not a good client of yours. And having a range on there, like Diane mentions, I think that's a fantastic idea. And again, if you're not quite sure what should your pricing be, how should you position your pricing, great conversation to have with a SCORE mentor, because that SCORE mentor can really help you understand who is it you're trying to appeal to, what are their needs, and what might be an appropriate price range for your particular services. All right, Teresa says, can I go back to the scan code? Teresa, I'm not 100% certain what you're referring to, so maybe if you can put into the Q&A a little bit more specifics what you're referring to, that would be helpful.
Yeah, the scan code is on the screen at this
moment. Oh, the QR code. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'll dismiss that then. Let's see. Okay, Debbie asked a good question. We have an existing website built on WordPress, but need to have an e-commerce site. Do I suggest adding e-commerce capability to that site or scrapping that and building a new e-commerce site on Shopify or Wix, etc.? There's not an easy answer to that because it's going to be different for every single business. In general, though, I do recommend, if you've got a good quality WordPress website right now already, I would say stick with that, add some e-commerce features on there. You can, WooCommerce is the plugin many people use with WordPress. If your website on WordPress is already good quality, add the e-commerce element to that good quality website. If your website on WordPress, maybe it's 8 or 9 years old, maybe you've kind of neglected it, it doesn't have modern elements on it, you may decide that maybe you want to kind of build a whole new one from scratch. You do want to be mindful, though, that the age of your website does also help you in your organic search rankings, but quality kind of surpasses everything. The quality of your website is the most important thing, absolutely. Richard says, Twitter, how do I configure Twitter to my website and not Twitter chats? Typically, that would be, if you're doing something in WordPress, there would be like a plugin for that. The one thing about the Twitter feed on there is it doesn't necessarily help you in your organic search results. Sometimes people think, oh, I'll have Twitter on there. That way I'll always be tweeting. There'll always be new information on your website. Typically, it's a plugin or it's an add-on, and it doesn't always help with your website growth. Let's see. James asked a question here. I'm getting solicitations to add links to my resource page on my website. Can I address this issue? I'm not 100% certain, James, what you're referring to about solicitations to add links. If there is a vendor who is saying to you, oh, we'll put all these links on your website for a fee and it will help your website grow, I would say probably stay away from that. Mm-hmm. If there are like-minded businesses that you partner with, either in your local community or you partner with them or you have used them and you recommend them, absolutely. If it's appropriate for your business, you may want to have a page on a resources page on your website and say, these are tools that I use and I recommend. So that's something that you may want to kind of be mindful about that here.
There are a lot of bad guys out there who will, for a fee, put all kinds of garbage links on your website, and it brings the value of your website down instead of elevating it.
Right. Okay. And I'm looking at the last question here from Kristen. Is there a way to link search to the page someone is looking for? Example, if they're looking for, I'm sorry, I'm mumbling because I'm reading. I can't mumble and talk at the same time. You think I could read out loud, but I can't read out loud and process. They're looking for wedding officiant Google. there a way to link search to the page someone is looking for? Okay, okay. Kristen, if you're talking about, okay, I think what Kristen is talking about is on your website, can you have Google go to a link on a particular page of your website, or can they go to your homepage? Whatever information people are searching for, Google will send them the page on your website that has that information. So hopefully that kind of makes sense, Kristen. If that's not, maybe if you can get a little bit more descriptive in a question, that would be helpful. Carl says, do I suggest MailChimp? Carl, MailChimp is a great tool. Most of you may be familiar with MailChimp. MailChimp is an email marketing tool. MailChimp has a free version. For those of you that have more time than money, absolutely use the free version of MailChimp. I personally recommend Constant Contact, which does not have a free version. MailChimp is fantastic. Just know that if you're the type of person who just needs more help, the free version of MailChimp is not going to offer very much help at all. They don't have any support. If you want the paid version of MailChimp, they've got different levels of support depending on what you pay for. But for many people, if you're just getting started, I would say go with the free version of MailChimp. Start collecting those email addresses, because those email addresses of people that visit your website, they are gold to you. Those are people who are interested in your business to some degree. And if you communicate with them on a regular basis, you've got a much better opportunity of capturing their business.
And if you have the email addresses on MailChimp and decide that you outgrow it or want to migrate to Constant Contact or anything else, really easy to export those email addresses and import them into a new platform.
Yep. The bottom line is be sure you're collecting email addresses on some platform, because that's the gold part of your business. All right. Richard says, aside from Facebook, which social ads, add-ons are best? It depends. Different social media platforms have different types of audiences. And so there is no, one size fits all. If you are in the B2B world, business to business world, you probably want to use something like LinkedIn. So it's going to depend all on what's most important for your particular business. And again, I know SCORE has lots of webinars about social media. And so you can find a little bit more information about that. So speaking of SCORE, Diane, why don't you wrap this up?
We have weekly webinars. This is one. Please go to our website, score.org/Minnesota. I am the education chair. I know I put together some fabulous webinars. So please go on there, sign up for them. They're always free. They're always on Wednesday. They're always at noon Eastern time. We welcome everyone. Please think about going to our website to request a mentor, to sign up for workshops, or just to do a search to find other webinars that we have recorded. We record all of our webinars and they are available online. Next, thank you. I know that you're all going to be getting an email with a survey. Not only are you getting an email with Pamela's fabulous presentation, we have recorded it, as well as her slides, but you're also going to get one from National asking what you thought of the webinar on a scale from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest. What did you think of Pamela's wonderful presentation? What can we do to improve? And lastly, what other topics are you interested in? I'm interested in what you are interested in. It really helps me do my job. Thank you, Kimberly. Pamela is an 11. So thank you, Pamela. As always, this has been amazing and filled with information for us to use. I've put a lot of it on the chat. I hope people have copied that off. If you didn't, you're going to get the link to this and you can fast forward to that section where Pamela is talking about something. So thank you all for coming. I hope to see every single one of you next week for next week's topic, whatever it is. And thank you again, Pamela, for participating.
All right. Take care, everybody. See you next time.
Bye-bye, everyone. Did we want to try and stay on after everyone is gone?
Why don't we log off and I'll just give you a call?
Let's do that.
Okay, great.
All right. Bye.